Hello, and welcome to the Data Engineering Podcast, the show about modern data management. This episode is sponsored by datadriven.io, the free data engineering interview prep platform built by data engineers for data engineers. Have you ever walked into a data engineering interview and gotten a question that has nothing to do with real data engineering work? Interviewing is its own skill separate from the job. Watch your code execute live, inspect Spark internals, and whiteboard your data models and pipelines and defend your decisions. Unlike SQL-only or Python-only practice, datadriven.io covers the full interview loop: star schemas, slowly changing dimensions, grain and fact table design, item potency, watermarks, dead letter queues, change data capture, and back pressure. Every question comes from real data engineer interview loops at Google, Amazon, Meta, Stripe, Databricks, Netflix, and Airbnb. Go to dataengineeringpodcast.com/datadriven today to start practicing. Your host is Tobias Macy, and today I'm interviewing Shravan Gunda about building an agent-driven data platform at Kaarvi. So, Shravan, can you start by introducing yourself?
Hi, my name is Shravan Gunda. I am the CEO and founder of Kaarvi AI, and it's nice to have here. Yeah,
And do you remember how you first got started working in data?
yeah. It's I think 21 years ago. we I worked for HP where we were doing this massive migration from old HP 12K and HP 24K LUNs to their new 3-par HP 3-par LUNs that they got on, and we were moving live production data, and that was a very critical project. So I got introduced to data world there, the data problems, what organizations deals every day. They deal with so much of data problems, and that was a very, I think, realistic, on my face view of, okay, this is how the data world looks like. Because before that it was all application perspective where everything is nice and clean, but when you go into the back end, actual data works. I think yeah, it's totally a different.
And so now, digging into Kaarvi itself, can you give a bit of an overview about what it is that you're building and some of the story about how you decided that this is where you wanted to spend your time and focus?
So I worked as a vice president for a known oil and gas company in the past, and also for a prominent financial company, where all we were doing was building complex architectures and also solutions to deal with data. Again, from end-to-end process, right? From ingestion to where it gets out as a transformed, desired output. So there was this complex, I mean, millions of dollars, and also headache to just maintain and support those new technology pipelines, ETL pipelines that we built. And every asset that we dealt with required like thousands and hundreds of solutions, and merging them, making sure what the desired output looks like was a huge complex issue. I think that's where the idea started for Kaarvi, where we deal with multiple different platforms for making data ready. And when I'm talking about data ready, for example, if you want to ingest data from a SQL database, you write thousands of SQL code, depending on what data set you're dealing with. And from there, you're talking quality issues, profiling and fixing, and anomalies. So every process here, we just spoke about three of them, but then go into transformations, then talk about lineage, governance. So everything here requires data readiness for an application solutions perspective, because these solutions are out there, but those are all siloed into their own capability perspective. Like, oh, one application only deals with transformations, the other one deals with governance, kind of. So where you spend 80% of your time in data readiness rather than spending on actual creating value. So most of the data engineers that I saw were doing janitorial work rather than doing what they're supposed to do. And in the past too, I mean, this is my team. Whenever we introduced a solution which could ease up their janitorial work, which I just spoke about, they were very happy. So, and as a vice president, I was actually also concerned from the business perspective, where if the overall project value was, let's say, $100, $80 were going just for the data readiness, and that's how much wastage we had in a project timeline. So that was the main idea for Kaarvi, where You have so much of AI, agentic AI, at this time where you can offload your other work of data readiness and make sure you're focusing on what insights you want to build. So that was the main idea.
And so now digging more into the core premise of Kaarvi being this AI native data platform, AI as a category has been used for a huge number of different considerations over the years as the capabilities improved. When you say AI to somebody today, most likely they're going to think of one of these generative transformer models, whether it's an LLM or a multimodal generative model. But for something like a data engineering pipeline, there are a lot of different types of ML and AI that can be beneficial, whether it's just a straightforward classifier that you want to execute quickly in a loop, or if you want to use some of the more agentic LLM style capabilities of some of the modern frontier models. And I'm just wondering if you can give a little bit of disambiguation about the types of AI that you're using in Kaarvi and how you think through those different use cases of what category and size and capability of model you want to use for those different junctures of data flow.
It's a great question. So, to start with AI, again, this was a buzzword in the past from 2018 when we were dealing with a huge NOCs who sell their automation as AI. So most of the NOCs were applications that were sold to NOCs, national oil companies in this case. The buzzword was AI. So if you go and if you present them an automation, I'm not saying they're dumb, but it's basically saying the word AI was abused in a point where you just present an automation and say this is something AI driven. That was like a wow factor in the past. I'm talking 2019 before all this crazy agentic AI came in, right? So what's the difference at this point of time? And Anthropic or OpenAI or all these major companies that are actually competing with, and you see a model being deployed every 2 weeks, 3 weeks these days, and there is an enhancement again. So rebuilding the whole wheel was not an option anyway, because in the past we were actually dealing with regenerative neural networks. That's in 2019, right? Now that's gone. We are talking agentic, which is basically halfway there on the LLM side where you can actually utilize. But today, the main challenge with any LLM in the market is they're 67%, 64% accurate. What do you mean by that is, so if you ask LLM chatbot, just upload your data set and ask any question, the reliability of the answer that you get is basically 60% or 64%. And if you are a heavy LLM or a agentic AI user, you would know that after certain iterations, it goes into its own loop and it starts answering the same answer no matter what the question is. So it's basically unreliable. Not, I wouldn't say unreliable at 100%, but at least that 40% unreliability is there. So what we did for a Carvey perspective is we are using, again, we didn't want to rebuild the whole wheel. So we have our proprietary coding that we did, but what happens is we are using around 7 LLMs in the back end, where when your query is processed or your request is processed, again we want to keep it completely agentic. We didn't want it to, again, these days, like I said, agentic AI models get updated every 2 3 weeks. So the challenge with the keeping traditional coding route is basically you have to update your application every 2 3 weeks to match that level of enhancement. And you know that those companies spend billions of dollars, millions of dollars on development, and when you come to the traditional startups like us, we cannot keep up with that development. So it's better, we thought it's better to incorporate those LLMs, but have a process of, the main challenge was reliability, right? How do we get the reliable 100%, 200% accurate answer when you ask a query or request a process? So for that reason, we went with this parallel regression where a query gets executed via 7 LLM models at the same time and compare the value with actual. I'm just taking an example. You're asking a SQL query question. So the training was done for almost 2.5 years for on this perspective, where how to get the reliable answer, where traditional SQL query was running in parallel, where you get the accurate answer in the real-time world. But again, compare every LLM that has processed our own. So we spin up our agents, and those agents were getting trained on the actual process that was happening, right? From the traditional code perspective. So that's how they got trained. And at this point of time, if you go log into Kaarvi with your personal email, which you can do today, and try out the answers that you would get, you wouldn't see any fault because of that reason. The more training it went, and these traditional agentic AI chat, I mean the agents that are sitting and serving Kaarvi are also learning while we are operating, and you know that loop we generate, right? So basically, our traditional code base is executing, taking use cases that every day that's happening, and training our agentic AI models. So that's how we are keeping up with the development process. Again, it's very hard these days to go the traditional route. So that's why we opted out this route to train our models. And before I think even speak about our models and agentic features, I would love to talk about the features that Kaarvi offers today. So just to give you a brief on what Kaarvi does. Again, I spoke about Kaarvi as a platform, not a product, and we always wanted to keep that as a standard. So what's the difference between a product and platform in my view is product gives you, let's say you got your Apple AirPods. So they're only going to serve as a audio rather than anything else. So that's a product. But if you go buy a laptop, again, you can see the possibilities there, right? So the basically it can be treated as a platform where you build stuff. It goes same with our current applications too. The ones that I love are Facebook and Amazon, the way they have the flexibility to build a product on their platform. So we treated Kaarvi while developing Kaarvi. The main idea was to build a platform. So today Kaarvi deals with end-to-end data management. What do you mean by that? Is no code, zero code ingestion, and it has 300. It supports around 300 ingestion types at this point of time, along with drag and drop for managers who doesn't really know how to even connect a database at this point of time. You can drag and drop your SQL, Excel or CSVs. It takes it in. From that to connect your databases to API ingestions to cloud ingestions. So any cloud storage you can ingest, any API ingestion you can directly ingest. You can connect any live database, or you can drag and drop your CSV. That's the ingestion part. But once you get there, you'll quickly get a preview of what your data is. So the current state of data will be clearly in depth. You'll get an in-depth view of what your current status like current state of data look like. We also have synthetic data generator, which actually supports test generating edge cases on the go. And at this point of time, we are supporting 4 million rows and 150 columns. And that's how much, not just the synthetic data generator, but the whole platform. So what synthetic data generator has, the unique feature that is Kaarvi serving is basically, you can generate your edge cases with any prompt these days, any using any chatbot like OpenAI or LLM. But end of the day, you have to keep fighting or refining your prompt to get your actual data set that you desire, right? So that problem is solved in Kaarvi, where you can refer a data set, original data set, and mention how many rows you want and how many columns you want. It's going to generate exact replica of that original data set with random numbers in it. So that and it's going to copy the type too. Like if the column is text or boolean to integer to string to whatever that reference is, it's going to copy exact that type of data into the test data. And there you go. I mean, with a click of a button, you'll have a test edge case to test, right? You don't have to fight with it, the prompts to keep refining it. And the other thing is you can generate and quickly import, like save to catalog, where we have this smart catalog where you can get to go. So it's not like, okay, I'm generating a test use case on another platform, which again, there are hundreds of applications that support that. And the problem is how to ingest that test data into your production or the platform where it actually tests. So you want to test it. So even those direct push to database, push to API, push to export to cloud, or download as a CSV. Excel is also provided. So that's synthetic data generator. So we have just spoke about exploration, how your current data state looks like, and also synthetic data generator that supports edge cases. Now we are going to profile and fix, where you can profile your data, find quality issues, fix those quality issues with AI. So what it does is it's going to list out all your quality issues, categorize them into different issues, the various types of issues that you got, and then bundle them, and you can take them and fix them using AI. And it's going to show you a preview of before and after, before applying the preview, so that you know exactly what your after preview, after a fix would look like. You're happy with it, click on apply fix, and it's going to do it. Like, so we followed this process where we have, so we use Jira and project management to track our tasks. And if you are a big project management user, and so we compared with a sprint, like if any task that is taking a sprint, which is 2 weeks, which is traditionally 8 days of work, you can do that in 4 hours on Kaarvi. And that was the goal that we wanted to achieve on Kaarvi. And that's huge, right? When compared to 8 days to 4 hours. So that's the quality and fix. And then you can go into validation. Kaarvi supports validations, cross-field validations, to anything to do with validations. So you can go ahead, and we have like I think 10 kinds of validations that we support, and I would love you guys to check it out. And then you can jump into anomalies. So quality issues fixed, validations done. Now you have anomalies in your database, a data set. Run through AI, it's going to find it out. And if you don't trust AI at this point of time, like some people doesn't really trust AI to go fix, manipulate the data, you can. We also provide manual methods to fix your quality issues, anomalies, and validations. So all of them has manual approach. All you have to do is click the tab manual, and then do your stuff there. And from there, we are also providing temporal intelligence, which is basically any trend degradation, sudden spikes, sudden drops in your data set, you can live monitor them. And whenever there is that, you get notified, and it tracks, and it keeps a track of 30 days, 90 days, and 180 days at this point of time. You can also subscribe to Enterprise and get your. And now we are talking about just quality and fix.
And so, with the AI driven design of the platform, obviously that changes a lot of the assumptions about the nature of the work to be done, how you would approach that overall work, and the utilities and technologies that you would bring to bear on the problem. So, setting aside the technologies piece for a minute, when you talk to a data engineer and say, hey, I have this particular use case, I need to be able to do analytics on the number of customers who abandon their shopping cart over the course of a given time period, whether that's days, weeks, months, they're going to have some ideas of, okay, well, I need to collect this data. I need to make sure that I have this modeled in this particular fashion. I need to wire this up. I have these assumptions about data quality. I need to ask these business users these questions for clarifying what constitutes a customer, what constitutes abandonment, et cetera. And if you are using the AI as the core loop of the implementation, how does that change that overall approach for the data engineer? What are the pieces that get obviated because of the fact that the AI can do some of that discovery on its own? What are the pieces that become more important because the human needs to make sure that the problem is actually solving the business case, etc.?
It's a great question, actually. So there are two approaches on Kaarvi that you can do. One is Hey Kaarvi, the other one is transformations. So a data engineer traditionally had to follow your route, like what you just explained, right? On Kaarvi, we support, in transformations, we support something very interesting, which is you have to articulate your requirement, and it's going to build the pipeline for you. It has something called code block. So what do you mean by that is it's going to write its own code for filling up the gaps. So what do you mean by that is basically once you said, okay, hey, I need to find, and this is the exact pipeline that we're building actually. That's pretty interesting. So our CMO, he came up with this use case where he wanted to track any customer that was spending more than $5,000 and were also not regular, and try to lure them with 50% discounts. right? The coupon only for those people. Now there was this huge data set where we had to filter out. First thing is filter out the $5,000 spent on a monthly basis, and then make sure all the data was intact. So every column has had a first name, last name, email, and all those data, the reliability of the data, and then quick validations, and then we had to write the ETL pipelines to transform all these requirements and then kind of feed that into a notification system, which is basically a CRM, in, CRM out, and then from there you are actually talking to your hotspot or some kind of platform which is communicating with your customers. Correct. So all this happened. Usually, a data engineer would do all this. But surprisingly, in Kaarvi, you can actually articulate the requirement. And the transformations module, there is this canvas, which actually resembles n8n, kind of, the flexibility of moving the front end visualizations. If you already used n8n, then you could visualize and compare. It actually builds the whole pipeline for you. All you have to do is map the output and test it out. So now if you miss anything, so if you see, okay, I missed this part, which my requirement was this, but you couldn't this, it actually goes and recorrects it. And again, this would sound like a magic, but this is possible today with Carvey, where data engineers doesn't have to do all that, like the traditional route that you just explained. They can articulate in plain English in transformations module of Carvey, and it's going to build ETL pipelines for you on the go. If you want to do it yourself, you can still do it. Again, we gave a code block which supports Python and SQL. You can write your own mappings, all kinds of transformations, but you can also ask AI to do it, and it's going to do it. If that answers your question, and you should really check that out. That's a magic, I would say. And I spoke about Hey Carvey. This is for more because I was a manager, people manager, and I know the pain of other managers who had to go through IT to get what they want. We built this Hey Carvey chat. Again, not just analytics, we support transformations. So basically, you can ask your data admins to give you access to the database, or you have that access to the database. All you have to do is import, again, with no code, low code, 200% no code actually, and then select the data set and keep chatting. You can ask, hey Carvey, hey, I want customers who are spending $5,000 every month to list it out. It's gonna go get those customers, so it's gonna give you three outputs. One is articulation in English of what that output looks like. Next thing is the visualization part. It's gonna build custom visualizations for you, and then it also going to transform and give you a whole table which is ready to export. So you're chatting to the data. It's gonna get all the customers list with first name, last name, email, or whatever your requirements is, along with the criteria that okay, they are spending $5,000 a month because that's the use case. And from there you can actually have an export for that particular table. You can export. So this is also possible via Hey Carvey. So two kinds of methods you can follow.
And digging into the infrastructure and design of the platform, wondering if you can talk through some of the overall system structure and the decision process about which pieces you can pull off the shelf from various open source components, and what are the elements that you decided needed to be core to the platform offering and engineered from the ground up with this AI focused use case.
The whole platform was built with vibe coding, actually, from ground up. We did not use any open source. I mean, the initial idea 4 years ago, when this idea started, we had multiple, I would say, open source platforms that were actually serving as, a fillers, I would say, or ground up, where we can start building on those. But when we started building this, and as the AI advanced, so well, we actually vibe coded 60% of the platform from scratch. There is nothing that we used from open source. I would say in transformations module, we have multiple features like you can publish the pipeline that you built with AI or manually as an API. You can also publish that as a dashboard. So it also serves as a visualization. So the output can be a dashboard. So it actually builds gadgets on the go where it's there, right? So those converters, we used it from multiple outsourcing, open source there, where we are converting the actual pipeline into an API. Those converters were actually open source, but other than that, everything is vibe code. The other great feature that we have is, people. Most of the managers, again, we are talking about not the technical side of the world where everyone understands how to build. I mean, the technical world understands how to deal with data, but the huge gap between the data world and the manager world is basically the technology, right? So for those guys, we built your text to dashboard, so you can actually map your data set and ask what you want to see or what dashboard you want, and it's going to build the dashboard. If you don't give anything, it's going to build a dashboard for all of it. So the converter that I used to build this was also open source.
With the fact that you're building it all from the ground up, there are obviously a lot of existing patterns. A lot of the open source and commercial offerings in the ecosystem have been battle tested over numerous years. And so, given the fact that you are re engineering this from scratch, what are some of the ways that you've approached that confidence building aspect of knowing that you have accounted for these various error conditions and edge cases that a lot of these other platforms have been investing in addressing for all of this time, as well as ensuring that you're going to be able to interoperate with all of the rest of the ecosystem, because not everybody is going to immediately drop everything that they've got and move wholesale onto Kaarvi. They're going to do it in an incremental fashion, and there are also going to be elements around the periphery of what Kaarvi is executing that still need to be integrated with. So I'm just wondering how you manage that scale of complexity when you're starting from scratch.
That's a great question. So, like I mentioned in the past, we had this traditional route where we were building an application, we're using open source, but we were also training our agents in parallel with the traditional route, right? So those agents got trained on the actual application, like traditional route application that was a norm in the past. So I'm talking 4 years ago. You didn't had this kind of technology in hand to build anything from scratch, like on vibe coding, correct? I mean, end of the day, you would end up with multiple issues and you're wasting time. So we followed the traditional route to build, but using open source, we built that training, I would say, sandbox for the agents to get trained. And I think I already mentioned that we have been training these agents from past 2.5, 3 years. Um, so those agents got trained on those. So if you go and check the patents that currently Kaarvi has, you would see more kind of an agentic AI, proprietary agentic AI agent of Kaarvi doing stuff, and you would see more kind of LLM calls, parallel, multiple, single shot. So these kind of patents, and what we got is again the process like text to dashboard. There is this companies who are like huge who got patented on certain processes, but intelligence, when you come to the intelligence that you got out there today that can support your dash development process, it's super. I would say the method that we are using is not being used anywhere else. So, but it was battle tested by the methods that already existed, if that made sense. So it actually battle tested on the open source processes or applications out there, but we had to customize it enough to add our flavor and I would say what Carvi stands, like the platform, right? So we had, even though our agents were training on those particular solutions, they were always contributing towards the platform as an end-to-end platform rather than a product. So I would say we only got enhanced with what's out there rather than building it from. So when I say building it from scratch, we still considered all the standards that is required to build that solution, but 1,000 times more on the capability side, and that's how we got there.
From a design standpoint, AI is obviously a force multiplier, but it is also inherently probabilistic and not going to be deterministic without a lot of extra effort. And there are definitely elements of the entire data engineering process that need to be deterministic and repeatable and reliable. And so I'm curious how you thought through the appropriate roles of AI in that end-to-end life cycle and where it should live within the Kaarvi architecture, and also how to manage some of the concerns around data privacy and data access for somebody who is relying on Kaarvi and providing access to the organizational data to these different models, et cetera.
It's a great question again. So my background is from oil and gas, right? So, when I say that, that means we built predictive analytics and data analytics applications in the past. So the main problem was sharing data. No company wants to share data outside their ecosystem. So we built Carvey with two flexibilities. One is basically you can install Carvey on your environment. So there is no SaaS there. It becomes your own product. And the solution that built and it runs on your private subnets. No internet needed to run Carvey. So there is no internet access. We only wanted to have a billing API access, and that's about it, to get the validations. That's a solution for people who doesn't like to share data with SaaS. And the other one is the traditional SaaS model where you are okay to share your data with the SaaS platform. But end of the day, you get your own container, right? So basically, the architecture part of so these days, all the tasks that run on Carvey is encrypted. When I say we took that extra measure of security, because I'm also an AWS architect, a solutions architect professional. I come from the background of Linux. I grew up with designing infrastructures for enterprises. So that's my core mentality where you come in to build a solution. So we are having multiple password encryptions. You can actually set passwords. You can publish those APIs with tokens that gets changed or replaced every 3 days. Custom, like you can actually set a custom time to expire. Nothing lives out of your control. As a admin or a user, yourself controls all process or platforms, like who can see what. You can actually share to a particular user. If you're building a solution, you can only share that user. So from the architecture standpoint, once your organization gets created, it lives in that container. Nothing leaves that container, and no internet access is required to run the Carvey application. Again, if you're not comfortable with SaaS, you can deploy Carvey on any virtual environment, Hyper-V, VMware, even Proxmox, any kind of virtual environment. We support that. So we have our images we can deploy, and everything comes with that image. But the only, I would say, a hiccup or the things to consider when you're using an on-prem is basically you won't have those updates that you get on SaaS, right? So that's the trade-off. But you have everything to run, and we also have a mechanism to keep your on-prem updated, but not as live as SaaS that you would see. So that's an interesting architectural design we took for customers who doesn't like to share data out of their organization.
One of the other pieces of the overall AI landscape is that there are cases where a foundation model is just fundamentally not going to have enough domain expertise to be able to make appropriate decisions for particular data cleaning. What are the rules around a particular structure? Some of that can be addressed through things like knowledge retrieval from RAG or knowledge graph patterns, but there are also cases where you're going to be best suited, particularly from a cost and performance standpoint, by using a fine-tuned model. And obviously there are cases where maybe the organization doesn't want to provide some of that data to a paid platform to be able to execute that fine tuning. And so I'm wondering how you're thinking about some of those aspects of control, and what are some of the escape hatches for your customers to be able to provide some of that customized logic or customized models to be able to execute within the actual Kaarvi platform, also mitigating any potential risks or liabilities that you're subject to by running somebody else's models and information in your platform.
At this point of time, for the on-prem delivery system that we have, the you can always have, so you have 100% control on the technology that comes with the on-prem. But for the one to train your own models at this point of time for SaaS, I don't think we have that ability. The fine tuning comes with, I think the process that we want to follow for this solution, or we are in the process of following, is basically dedicating agentic based solution by organization. So if you're an individual user, you get your own agent, and that you can actually train by yourself, and it is your agent. No one else is going to train or use that part of the technology. So that's the route we want to go. By end of 2026, you will see that coming up.
And as you have been building and operating this system, obviously there are numerous edge cases that come up. There is a huge amount of ongoing work that you need to do as new models come about, as you add new tools, as you add new context. And I'm wondering what has been your overall approach, and how have you thought about the core investment of being able to evaluate the effectiveness of the various AI and the different use cases that you're employing it for, to ensure that it is operating as effectively as possible and that you can evolve the system with confidence.
Correct. And that was our core problem to start with, right? So that's why we were like, okay, how do I solve the reliability issue? Because today, AI, when we started at least, the AI was not 50% reliable at that point of time. It was still in 30s. So the process has been always stick to the core, stick to the basics, train your models based on those basics, rather than going, now I have an AI LLM that I can just import or get an API access and start building an application on it. That was not at all the approach to start with. The We followed the basics, 100% basics. We built the basics where AI can operate as an additional force multiplier, rather than okay, now things happen on AI. 100%. The output that you get is what do you call, the processed at the speed of light by AI agents, but they all got trained on the traditional route. So if you ask them to do some kind of a task, it's going to first check its traditional routes, and it's going to give you options where you choose which option to execute. So that's the Kaarvi route. Rather than saying, hey, I executed this, now this is your only option, this is the answer that you deal with, now go deal with this output, right? It doesn't do that. It actually gives you options, and then you can always, it's like I'm sure most of the listeners here would have dealt with training ML models in the past, where you have to iterate and to get the model output. In Carvey, that's possible. The same approach is possible, because go it with quality or anomalies or building transformations or dashboards or just chatting with it. All you have to do is refer to that data set and keep asking questions, right? And you can keep the iterations going on until you get what you have. So that's the beauty of Carvey. Like and it happens. It eliminates all the janitorial work, like I said, and all the additional traction that you have to spend. So you can focus on that output. So this is the output I want, and I know that, and you can keep doing until you get that output. And again, the testing that we are doing in the back end, we are only targeting. So there is a dedicated testing team, or I would say process, for each lateral. Let's say oil and gas. So there are agents that are getting trained on only oil and gas data. So when you are signing up and you start uploading oil and gas, and the backend sees, or the AI sees that it's well ID or some kind of reservoir name or something, it's gonna call those agents. So there are agents that are dedicated. And if it sees finance, So those agents come into play. And if you see anything to do with PII, and that's a huge thing, right? So there are agents that got trained on PII. They don't do anything else. So the architecture is in such a way that it intelligently routes, orchestrates that particular task to those dedicated agents. So that solves the problem of now there is new lateral that comes in where we had to train. I think we will at this point of time, but we covered most of the what do you call the market data that's available, the open source data, the open data were available. They got trained on, and they got trained on. I think we ran around I think 11 petabytes of data per lateral. And when I say lateral, I'm talking domain, each domain. And those were like huge, multiple thousands, I would say, of use cases that they got trained on. So that was the route.
And as you have been building this platform and working with customers, what are some of the most interesting or innovative or unexpected ways that you've seen Carvey used?
Again, that's a great question. What we are seeing is customers coming up with satisfaction and also the awe moment where to see the output, they had to again go multiple iterations, because again, when you're trying to convey the requirement to what you want in product, end result, let's say I'm just taking an example of a Power BI route where a whole executive team is dependent on a dashboard that actually requires for them to take a business decision. And this is just one of the very simple use cases that you can do on Carvey, but there are like complex things you can do. But I'm taking this for everyone to understand. So the traditional route is we scrap all the data sets available from an ERP system, load it up into SQL database, then process it to make sure the reliability of that the trust, you can trust that data. Then you kind of write the transformations, probably use dynamic 365 or some kind of power apps to do that, then write the transformations using Azure. So again, there is a lot of movement there. And then you feed those transformations into another database, then from there Power BI loads and then shows those dashboards. Again, imagine head of operations or a VP asking for a small change in the dashboard that you just got. The whole process repeats again, right? So in this case, the text to dashboard conversion, where you are feeding your schema and you have multiple dashboards that got ingested, data sets that got ingested, and the engineer, data engineer, or the head of operations asking Carvey that, okay, I want to see a project A spend from these employees, list all the employees, list all their cost, actual cost, and also list what the forecast would look like. It happens in minutes, and you can see that output and take a decision and share it with a click of a button. You can share the dashboard to anyone you want with a password protection, and also you can download. The cool thing, again, I have to say this, is you can export the dashboard as an HTML, and that HTML download will stay with you but communicate back to the original dashboard for changes at any given point of time. Imagine you're flying on a flight, you have your dashboard up. As soon as there is a internet connected, that downloaded HTML file actually goes back, checks, and then updates the information, right? That feature is also there. So I think, I mean, these kind of technologies, advancements that we have, I think that's the awe that they see, because traditional routes consume time, resources, money, and a lot of reiterations going back and forth. But on Carvey, it's basically things happen in minutes, and the user is not a technical guy. That's the beauty of it. So you still can run or get output of whatever you want, not being a technical person. I think that's the whole point of Carvey to start with, to build a platform that anyone can use.
And as you have been working on this project and platform and business, what are some of the most interesting or unexpected or challenging lessons that you've learned while building this AI native data orchestration system?
We started, so the start of this whole idea was for oil and gas, because I was an oil and gas and also for only finance. And we targeted certain domains, but while we are building this solution, we got to know that every domain out there has the same problem. So we had to expand the whole idea of including all the domains, get those agents trained on all the domains data, and make sure we incorporate the ease of use. That was a very big challenge for how to make sure a person who doesn't have any idea to run an ETL pipeline, or even never heard of trying or building a pipeline, to use Kaarvi. Because I think any expert from the data world would know how to build an ETL pipeline, and if you are giving them AI, like 100x support, then it's easy for them to figure out how to use that. But if a normal, I would say, non-technical person, to make sure they feel that ease of use on Carvey, I think that was a super challenging part. Yeah, I think we achieved that, and that was the goal. That was hard.
For somebody who is in the process of evolving their data workflows, they're thinking about how to get some of the benefits of AI as an accelerator for data focused work. What are the situations where you would advise against using Carvey?
Today, you can get started by checking out our website, carvi.ai, and you can get started with your Gmail. Quickly test. You'll get 600 credits to start with. And that's pretty much enough for testing out all the platform. And also, I would say try out. Don't hesitate on trying out AI. Agentic AI features that we are actually providing, because you don't have to upload your any proprietary data. We have our own synthetic data generator where you can give a prompt and it's going to generate your test data, and try all the agentic features and you'll love it. Because what you would see is 80 to, I would not exaggerate, but 60 to 80% of time saved, resources you don't really have to depend on most of the traditional route that you take, and you'll see the faster results with 200% accuracy. And I think the potential of Carve is so tremendous. Why? Because of even, like I said, in transformations, we added a code block and there is an AI processor, right? So the main idea was that to promote Carvey as, now you have your data, you have your flow, now you can add your custom code. That means you're actually building an application that can be published as a dashboard and share it with your customers, right? That was the main idea. Like that could also be achieved, and that is being tested right now to use Carvey. And that's the potential of Carvey, is what I'm saying. So you guys should test those out. And I was amazed with what we can do with Carvey, because the idea started pretty simple, but today I'm sure it's going to be a, ease, the 100% ease of use of Carvey. Anyone can use that. And democratizing AI, I mean, that's a huge project, and everyone is trying to do that. But I think Carvey achieved it, is what I would say.
And as you continue to build and iterate on the platform and the business, what are some of the things you have planned for the near to medium term, or any particular capabilities that you're excited to explore?
That's again a great question. So we wanted to build a community that can, again, with this AI boom, everyone is so worried about what the future would look like. So today, in the very near future, we want to have AI marketplace, Carby marketplace, where you can build your pipelines, or whole process of ETL pipelines, or any process that you think can add value to the customers, and publish there. And the customers can directly import those solutions into Carvey and start using them. So we want to build that whole ecosystem. And I'm pretty excited for that marketplace to go live, where the feedback loop, right? So it's not just taking from the society, but also giving back to the society with marketplace, where solutions provider who publish solutions get paid, with the ease of for customers not to even build that pipeline. I mean, it's readily available for them to use. You don't have to waste or juggle on building the same process. And these pipelines or marketplace solutions, we are targeting SMEs, like real domain experts, to build those solutions. So those won't be any less than a masterpiece. Those solutions. I mean, those kind of approach we are taking, and also in very near future, you'll see a desktop application for Kaarvi, where you can install Kaarvi on your laptop and start using it as a Siri. You can call it Hey Kaarvi, and it's gonna assist you with talk to operations. So those are some pretty exciting roadmap we got.
All right. Well, for anybody who wants to get in touch with you and follow along with the work that you and your team are doing, I'll have you add your preferred contact information to the show notes. And as the final question, I'd like to get your perspective on what you see as being the biggest gap in the tooling or technology that's available for data and AI management today.
Yeah, the biggest gap that I saw is what I just explained last 10 minutes is the technology gap. The technology world lives in its, technology world and the business world doesn't really share a common platform. There is that gap where business world has to depend on technology world, I mean the core technical guys to get insights, and the translational requirements might get lost. So we want to bridge that gap with Kaarvi, where anyone feels very comfortable to use Kaarvi. I think the like I said, democratizing AI for data management is the goal. So we will make sure that that happens in a very smooth and comfortable way for all users, all kinds of users.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time today to join me and share the work that you've been doing on Kaarvi and the ways that you've implemented AI as the core loop of driving the overall data workflow, because it's definitely a very tedious process for large chunks of that. So being able to offload a lot of that to these tireless agents to handle some of that heavy lifting and freeing up the humans to focus more on the actual business cases is definitely a very interesting and worthwhile endeavor. So I appreciate the time and energy you're putting into that, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Same here. I had a blast of the conversation, and again, focusing on technical side of Carvey was very interesting, and the questions that we discussed were very apt to what we are doing. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you for listening, and don't forget to check out our other shows. Podcast.net covers the Python language, its community, and the innovative ways it is being used. And the AI Engineering Podcast is your guide to the fast-moving world of building AI systems. Visit the site to subscribe to the show, sign up for the mailing list, and read the show notes. And if you've learned something or tried out a project from the show, then tell us about it. Email hosts at dataengineeringpodcast.com with your story.
And to help other people find the show, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and tell your friends and coworkers.